So I want to talk real quick here about the Trump regime's attempted deportation of Columbia student Mahmoud Khalil. And I want to make a point about the rule of law and the Constitution specifically here. I'm sure you know about his case. By the way, I really do need to make this quick. It snowed here last night. We got about 3 or 4 inches, and it's changing over to rain now, and my driveway is becoming a slushy mess, and I got to go deal with it because it ain't going to get any better. Anyways, let me read a brief summary of what happened last night, because there's been a ruling in that case, and so let's all get up to speed here. This is from NBC. An immigration judge on Friday ruled that the Trump administration can deport Columbia University graduate student Mahmoud Khalil, a decision that comes a month after his arrest prompted national outrage and marked the start of the federal government's broader crackdown on foreign students. The Louisiana judge affirmed the Trump administration's argument. Quote, "The court will sustain charge of removability." And this is a statement from Khalil's attorney. "Today we saw our worst fears play out. Mahmoud was subject to a charade of due process, a flagrant violation of his right to a fair hearing, and a weaponization of immigration law to suppress dissent." Because at the heart of this, the reason they're removing him, and he was in this country, or he still is in this country legally, came here legally, was here legally as a student. At the heart of this is his speech that the government doesn't like. And so they're going to deport him on that basis. But here's what I really want to talk about. This idea of due process and the Constitution, specifically the Constitution. We talk all the time about how Donald Trump does not follow the Constitution. He doesn't follow our laws, doesn't follow the Constitution. And that is certainly true. But the problem did not begin with Donald Trump. And here, in the application of immigration law, we see a real big problem that really bothers me, that I don't hear talked often enough about. We have had in this country for decades, both parties, all branches of government, completely, I really picked a lousy place to stand. I'm going to power through. This will be quick. All three branches and both parties have overseen the absolute destruction of the most fundamental aspects of our Constitution. Because here we had Mahmoud Khalil have a hearing before an immigration judge. Immigration judges are not judges in the way that we think of judges. They are not part of the Article 3 judiciary. They're not part of the judicial branch of government. These judges, and I use that term loosely, I mean, we call them immigration judges, but they're not judges. They're administrative hearing officers. That's what they are. And to call them immigration judges is to lie about what they are, actually. These immigration judges work for Donald Trump. They are part of the executive branch, not the judicial branch. And that's not supposed to happen. Okay? The Constitution clearly separates out the various powers of government and takes the judicial power and gives it to the courts. Here, we have the executive branch acting through these administrative law judges, which is what immigration judges are. They're friggin' administrative hearing officers. They are exercising judicial power. They are deciding cases and controversies. Our Constitution forbids that to be done in the executive branch or in the legislative branch. It must be done in the judicial branch. But that's not the system that we have allowed both parties to set up. Congress created a system in which these immigration issues, these hearings can be had before administrative judges in the executive branch. So that judge who upheld the Trump regime's arrest of this person and their deportation of this person. Now they're going to try to appeal this in some fashion, but they're going to lose, and this guy's going to be deported. But this challenge of Trump's deportation was decided by a guy who works at the pleasure of Donald Trump, who works in the executive branch. That's not supposed to happen in this country. Yet that is the system that both parties have created by law, and the Supreme Court has upheld. So we have Congress giving the president judicial power, and we have the judicial branch acquiescing to it and saying, yeah, you could do that. Now, I know the argument is, hey, we can't have an Article 3 trial, a full judicial jury trial, for every one of these deportation cases. It would clog up this system. It's not possible to do that. Yes, I agree. You don't have to have a jury trial as if they were charged with a crime. You can set up the same sort of laws that govern these hearings. You can have it such that they're not entitled to a jury trial, that it's just a hearing. But you can do that all within the judicial branch so that you are guaranteed that the judge is actually a judge and not a glorified administrative hearing officer, and that judge does not work for the guy who arrested and is trying to deport the person. That you actually have a judge in the judicial branch who's not beholden, who doesn't work for, who doesn't serve at the pleasure of the guy doing the deporting. This is seriously screwed up. And yes, we could talk about the fact that the basis of this deportation is speech, and that's a huge problem, and that's what most of the commentary is about. But what really pisses me off is the fact that this is completely outside of our constitutional system. It is not supposed to work that way. And this is the problem. This is why we have a situation in which Donald Trump is so easily becoming a dictator, accumulating all this power, because over decades and decades, both parties have set up a system in which it is so easy for a president to accumulate to grab for himself and exercise that kind of dictatorial power. It's not provided for in the Constitution. None of this is legal. And even within the system that has been created over decades, the bastardization, if you will, of the Constitution, even within that corrupted system, Donald Trump is acting far outside the bounds of that. But in so many ways, and you see it so clearly in these immigration hearings, this is something that both parties have done, and all three branches have allowed to happen. This is really, really screwed up, and it ain't supposed to be this way. I am freaking soaking wet, and I got to go deal with my driveway. So thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.